Hey everyone, Kyle Erickson here. If you're an Apple user or considering switching to Apple, one of the largest benefits of owning multiple Apple devices is the ecosystem. When we talk about the ecosystem in a nutshell, we're basically referring to the seamless transition and integration between devices where doing one thing on one device can be carried over to another with minimal steps or setup involved. This is something that is constantly evolving, and each year we see new features added to the ecosystem. If you don't really keep up on a lot of this stuff and you don't watch WWDC or pay much attention to Apple events, it's easy to not even know a lot of these pieces of functionality exist. My goal today is to go over most of these features, what they are, how they work, and how to set them up in case anyone isn't aware. But I am going to be doing all of this in iOS 16, iPadOS 16, and macOS 13 Ventura, so we're as current as possible. This means that right now, all of this is going to be done on beta software, so chances are this might look a bit different to you depending on when you watch this and if you're running older versions. Some of the menu screens might look a little bit different, but in general, the process should be relatively the same. One thing that will be the same for all versions, and in order for this to work right off the hop, all of your devices need to be signed in with the same Apple ID, and each of those devices also has to be connected to the same network connection. For most people, that's just going to be making sure that everything is on the same Wi-Fi connection. From there, we can start setting things up for each specific use case. We'll start off with the most well-known basic stuff and work our way through a bunch of different features and functionality. So with that said, let's get started. The first thing that I want to touch on is making and receiving calls on iPads and Macs. Now, this is relatively easy to set up. You want to start off by going to your phone and going to Settings, Phone, Calls on other devices, and then turn on Allow calls on other devices. Mine is already toggled on, and I'm going to toggle on all of the devices that I want to use as well. So if there's ever any instance where after you've set this up, you're still not getting messages, make sure that those devices are toggled on. After you've done that, everything should be good to go, and if I want to make a call on my Mac, I can either go to my contacts and click any of these little telephone icons to initiate a call, or I can click a phone number in Safari or a web browser, and I'm prompted on whether I want to call that particular number. When you're on a call, you'll just use the default audio devices, so if you don't have any headphones or headset on, it will just go through your Mac speakers and microphone. If you want to accept incoming calls, you'll get a notification that you have an incoming call, where you can answer that call, send it to voicemail, or send the caller a message. This process is very similar on iPadOS, where you can do the same thing. Go to a phone number in your contacts or through a phone number in Safari and initiate a call there. To answer calls, you'll just slide to answer the call. On the Apple Watch, calling features just work out of the gate. You can take calls through your watch, as there is a provided speaker and microphone inside the watch. Just speaking for myself, I text way more than I call, so if you're like me, receiving text messages on your Mac or your iPad can be even more important than calls. To get that to work, all I'm going to do is head back over to my iPhone, go to Settings, and hit Messages. From there, I'm going to tap text message forwarding, and again, I'm going to toggle on any of my Macs or iPads to the on position. Once you've done that, you should get any notifications anytime someone sends you a message on both your Mac and your iPad, or you can open up the Messages app, look over your messages, and send anything that you'd like. Calling and sending SMS messages are great ecosystem features, but beyond this, it starts to get more and more interesting in my opinion. One of the most widely known and most used features in the ecosystem is AirDrop. AirDrop allows you to easily send and share files wirelessly between your own and other folks' devices that are also within range of yours, provided that they are set up to receive AirDrops from other people. This is one feature that doesn't need to utilize Wi-Fi, as it just uses Bluetooth to recognize other devices. There isn't a whole lot of setup with AirDrop because it's caked right into your machines. But if you head over to your Mac and go to Settings, click on General and go to AirDrop and Handoff, you can select from who you'd like to be able to receive AirDrop files from. That's the same on iPhone or iPad. I could just go to Settings, and under General, I can go to AirDrop and select whichever I like there as well. You can use AirDrop by simply just looking for the share icon anytime that you want to share anything. Clicking that brings up the share menu, and from there you can click on the AirDrop icon and choose the device that you'd like to AirDrop your specific file to. If your device is in sleep mode, it likely won't show up here, so you want to make sure that the device that you want to share with is powered on and in an active state. When sharing from an iPad or an iPhone to a Mac, as the AirDrop file comes through, you'll get a little notification on your Mac saying that the file is being transferred or is received. You can open it from there or show it in the Finder. All the AirDrops by default are saved to your downloads folder on your Mac. If you share the other way around, where you're receiving the files on your iPhone or your iPad, these will usually be more of a full display. If you receive a photo or a video, those will pop up in your Photos app later if you'd like to access them again. Or if it's a file like a PDF or something, you'll likely be able to find those in your Files app. That's really all there is to AirDrop. It's not always going to work 100% of the time. It can tend to fail every now and then, but overall I find it one of the handiest features in the ecosystem. If you were paying attention to the settings screens as this was being set up, you might have noticed that there was a little blurb in there about something called Handoff, and that's the next thing I want to touch on here. Handoff powers numerous ecosystem features, and basically what it allows you to do is start working on one device and switch to another to continue working on the same thing, or transfer an action from one machine to another. This will make much more sense as we dig into things, but to set this up, we just want to make sure that each device has Handoff turned on. If you remember on macOS, we just want to go to that AirDrop and Handoff location in our general settings and make sure that Handoff is toggled to the on position. On iPhone and iPad, pretty much the same deal. Just go to Settings, General, Airplane Handoff, and just make sure that Handoff is turned on. With Handoff turned on, you can do things like continue tasks that you were doing on another machine. Say if I'm on my phone on a web browser, I can go over to my Mac and see this little phone icon over my web browser, click the browser and open up that same web page on my Mac. You can also do that with the email app, notes, pages, maps, messages, and a bunch of things, but beyond that, Handoff enables a whole host of other functionality, including one of my favorite features within the ecosystem, Universal Clipboard. With Universal Clipboard, you can copy and paste between devices, whether that be text, images, or even videos, and the only thing you need to do to make that work is to make sure that Handoff is enabled. I use this all the time for copy and pasting links and pictures. Let's say I have a picture on my Mac that I want to send in a message on my phone. I can just copy that specific image and just double tap on the text area and just click paste like I normally would. And you can see it will transfer over. Like I said, you can do this for text and links as well, and it doesn't matter what app it's in, so extremely convenient. Similar to inserting images via Universal Clipboard, I can also use Continuity Sketch and Continuity Markup to insert sketches, annotations, and markup on a document from one device to another. Again, there isn't much setup here at all other than the requirements at the beginning of the video, so as long as you have those set up and enabled, to use this is fairly straightforward. Let's say you want to sign a document, maybe a PDF contract, and you want to use your Apple Pencil on your iPad to do the signature, or maybe even use your finger on your iPhone instead of using the trackpad on your Mac. I can open up the PDF file and I'm going to look for the markup icon in the document and click that. Within there, I'm going to click Add Signature, and I can create a signature with my trackpad here, but I'm going to go over to the iPhone or iPad tab and hit Select a Device. I'm going to select my iPad because I want to use my Apple Pencil to mark up my signature. And once I do that, I get this little overlay that pops up on my iPad. And I'm just going to sign it and click Done. And you'll see that my signature automatically pops up on my Mac. And I can place this signature wherever I want. I can also use this similarly in other apps like Pages. Say if I'm writing something and I want to add a sketch or a drawing, I can click the media button in Pages and go to my iPad and hit Sketch. A screen will then pop up on my iPad and I can sketch whatever I want and click Done. and I'll see it show up on my file. You might have also noticed that there's a few other options within that media menu, like adding photos or scanning documents, and that is all done via Continuity Camera, which is one of the most exciting features with the release of iOS 16 and macOS 13 Ventura. To use both of those versions, I'm currently on the beta, and depending on when you watch this video, if it's now, you'll likely also be on the beta, but if it's a few weeks from now, it's likely that you'll be running these required versions if you have the latest updates installed. If you don't have iOS 16 or macOS 13, you can still use the features that we saw in Pages, which I'll go over now. I can go to the media button, or I can just simply right click on the page and click insert from iPhone or iPad and take a photo, which will use my camera to take a picture and place it in the document. Or I can select Scan Document instead, which will analyze anything with a written text and scan it into your document. Those features are available in multiple applications, but beyond that is where the really cool stuff starts. New in iOS 16 and macOS 13 with Continuity Camera are some really amazing features. You can now use your phone camera as a webcam on your Mac, which is awesome if you have a setup like mine where you run your machine in clamshell mode, or you have a Mac Mini or something. To use this feature on iOS 16, you'll want to head to Settings, General, AirPlay and Handoff, and make sure that Continuity Camera is toggled on. With that on, anytime your iPhone is in range of your Mac, you'll be able to access it just like you would if you had a webcam setup. I can just go into an app like FaceTime, and I can just select my iPhone camera from the video option, and I can also use the iPhone mic there as well if I want to. And that goes the same for any third-party meeting tools. For example, in Google Meet, in my settings, you can see that I have my iPhone camera available, so super handy, especially considering that an iPhone camera is always going to look better than any webcam. And there will also be some accessories made available soon where you can actually clip your iPhone to the top of your monitor, which will make this a lot more convenient. Another feature where we can extend a device's functionality to your Mac is called Sidecar, which is specific to your iPad and your Mac. This allows you to use your iPad as a secondary display, so if you don't have another monitor or you're traveling or something, this can be pretty handy. To get started, you'll have to have a Mac made from 2016 and up, and any iPad Pro, iPad Air 3rd generation and above, iPad mini 5th generation and above, or a regular iPad 6th gen and above. You must have handoff turned on, and your iPad or your Mac can't be used as a wireless hotspot. From there, your iPad just has to be within a 10 meter or 30 foot range to your Mac. And you move things to your iPad with Sidecar by moving your cursor over the full screen button on any window and by selecting Move to iPad. This will move that particular window to your iPad and effectively extend macOS onto your iPad, which is quite handy if that's all you want to do. You have a bunch of commands on the left side of your iPad screen for things like on-screen keyboard functionality and disconnecting from your Mac. And while that is useful, there's now a feature that I find superior to Sidecar, which is Universal Control. Universal Control works similarly to Sidecar in that you're using the same mouse and keyboard to go from one device to another, but the difference is we're no longer extending our display over. It's still physically using your iPad or your Mac on its own operating system with its own apps and screens. To set this up on our Mac, we're going to go over to our settings and go to Displays and click Advanced. To make Universal Control work, you just need the top two toggles on, but you can also select the third one if you like. On iPad, we can go to Settings, General, AirPlay and Handoff, and make sure that cursor and keyboard is toggled to the on position. After that, I can just move my cursor over to the edge of my screen on my Mac until it starts to go through on the iPad side. You'll start to see this little sidebar that will allow you to move up and down to adjust where your iPad screen is in relation to your Mac. And when you slide it through, you can just travel back and forth between your iPad and your Mac seamlessly. You'll see that the actual machines work independently from each other, but I can still do things like drag and drop files from one system to another, so this is extremely powerful. Also, I can head back over to my display settings if I want, say if the screens aren't aligned properly, and just adjust them by clicking the screen arrangement button. Universal control is one of my favorite things about the ecosystem, but one thing that I actually use more than all of the things that I've mentioned in this video is auto unlock. If you've got an Apple Watch and you've unlocked it on your wrist and you're close to your Mac or holding your iPhone, you can effectively unlock both of those devices without having to enter a password or use Touch ID or Face ID. To do this, go to Settings on your Mac, scroll down to Touch ID and Password, and under Apple Watch, make sure that your watch is toggled on. Just a note there, on older versions of macOS, this will be located in Security and Privacy in your system preferences. To unlock your iPhone with your watch, you'll want to go to Settings, Face ID, and Passcode, and scroll down to Unlock with Apple Watch, where you'll want to make sure that's enabled. I love having this because I don't ever need to put in my password or fingerprints, and it's also useful if you're ever asked for admin permission to perform any operations. You just need to double click your watch button versus having to type in your password every time. I know there are a lot of features and info there to take in, and there's also some setup involved, but I hope this was useful and informative for you. I know there are a few other things that you can do in the ecosystem, but I think these are the ones that I personally love the most. And I decided not to mention stuff like wireless hotspots because that's a feature that most laptops and phones have these days, and I think people are relatively familiar with those. But I would love to know, out of all of these features, which one do you love the most, or do you use the most? Or maybe let me know in the comments down below if there was anything in here that you didn't know about until now. That's it for me today. As always, if you enjoyed this video, click that like button. If you want to see more tech-related content, or if you want to start a book club with me, only to get through 2 chapters of each book and read about the rest online, and pretend that we both read it in hopes that no one notices, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next upload.